Good evening, everyone. I hope you are all well. It seems to be getting more interesting and more worrying by the day. And the phrase that has been mentioned increasingly over the last week or two is this one: legal but harmful. Really worrying because what we've basically been told is that just because something is legal doesn't mean that it can be deemed harmful. In other words, we don't know where we stand. Nobody does. This is quite worrying. We've seen what has happened to in the courts. Many people who were violent protesters, quite rightly, brought to justice, and they should all of the people who were uh, who were committing violence and atrocities and so on. But this has taken a step further, where now any of us who discuss anything to do with current affairs are literally walking on eggshells, would be an understatement. It's getting to the point where really we're not really clear about what can or can't be discussed anymore. Because once they throw the term legal but harmful at us, then we really are at risk. And this is something that anybody who is expressing opinion, for example, somebody who's just reporting news, uh, is not so much at risk, but then they need to be made, they need to be very, very careful, because what if they then at some point say or post anything that reports are coming in or whatever it may be, and then that turns out to be incorrect. That can happen to everyone, to anyone. Um, Unless, apart from the BBC, of course, because they're never wrong, are they? And we've basically seen that the way the law is being interpreted now, that anybody who does anything like that is at serious risk of prosecution, which nobody would like. And then there is also interpretation. For example, I had an idiot reporter get in touch with me today, and he was referring to a comment which went as follows: Islam equals submission, which it does. What if I don't submit? Now, the responses to that were submission to God. You're inciting this. No. Just check that one word. It doesn't matter how it's interpreted. Translation, that one word means submission. And of all people, I should know, my best friend is a Muslim, my ex was a Muslim. I can out argue many people on this topic. It was just an example. And this guy basically said, well, it could be Islamophobic. So I replied, he wanted me to call, and I replied and I said, I'd rather meet in person. Happy to make time, meet you tomorrow afternoon or the day after. Hasn't replied yet. Whether he's just going to go off and write whatever he wants about me or not, I'm not sure. It wouldn't surprise me. But I'm disappointed, really disappointed, because here's what gets me most. I, and many people who stood in the recent election, many people who are speaking up, don't need to be putting myself in the firing line at my age. I have a business to run, I come and go as I like, etc. And suddenly, by standing, I really put myself in the line of gunfire, as many others did. I've never, ever known as much hostility as I have seen in the last couple of months, to be honest. And there is a small core who continue to pursue me to literally bestow me with hate on a daily basis. And here's what's really sad, as I said, at my age, I'm fine. Whatever happens, one way or another, I'll manage, as most of us will. But it's, as I've said to you on many, many occasions, this is about speaking up for our children. Not mine. My daughter's grown up. She's in Cyprus, always has a strop with me because, for the best intentions of not spoiling her, I must have done. It's when I say our children, I'm talking collectively as a nation, as a society. And many of those who are most hostile are not really aware that my arguments are for their benefit, if you like, because I consider it highly unfair that young people can't buy a house, that they struggle in so many different ways. And if you saw my previous video, when I had a meeting down in London the other day with a group of people and I interviewed them about their thoughts about the EU, for example, there were people in labour intensive businesses, tradesmen, etc., electrical companies who were, we want free movement because my business is struggling because I can't recruit. Understandable. And yet there were the very people who benefited from free movement previously and now have settled settled status, sorry. They're now tradesmen and they're earning over £300 per day. And to my surprise, when I asked, how would you feel? Would you be happy if the government were to slowly make closer ties with Europe and perhaps introduce freedom of movement again? And guess what? They were against it. And to paraphrase in my pidgin English, or their pidgin English, or both, the exact term was, no, because people is coming and daily rate is going down £80 a day, which it would. So here's the great irony. And if there is more people, more demand, two things happen. One, the demand for property and rentals increase, no matter what happens, no matter how fast they try and build. And two, tradesmen, unskilled workers, labourers, drivers, and factory do we have factories, warehouse workers, whatever they may be. Many of these industries have moved away or up from the national minimum wage because they need to recruit. If they have an abundance, unlimited labour, do you think that many of these jobs that are paying 12, 15, £20 an hour will be paying that, or will they all fall straight down to national minimum wage? And who's going to suffer? The poorest 20% or the lowest earning 20%, income will fall, outgoings like rent will go up. Who will benefit? I'd benefit because I'd like to renovate more properties, but many of the properties in and around Northampton for renovation wouldn't be cost effective to renovate now, because when I'm looking at tradesmen paying tradesmen over £300 per day, and they're busy, and I have to be grateful for them to turn up, it's the renovation would cost more than the margin. So that's a benefit. But is it a benefit to working people? No, it's not. And for all of these things, the hostility has just it's just exceeded what I ever would have imagined. And in these last few weeks, everything that is happening, and I'm going to be careful not to mention anything because I'm not treading on eggshells. I'm treading on thin ice in spring at the moment. This is where it is. And that's really sad because everything I argue about, and many of us, are arguments made from the heart for the better good. And I have absolutely no problem with anybody disagreeing with me. But what I find very, very disheartening, where has our love of debate gone? What has happened to our democracy? What has happened to everything that was so beautiful about this country that we love so much? And that's really upsetting me. And at the same time, I'm also uncomfortable with the fact that I feel as though increasingly that I need to look over my shoulder just to speak my mind when I'm actually not, have no ill intention whatsoever. And all I want to see more than anything is I do not want our, our older people used as cash cows. I don't want resentment against them. I am furious at the fact that their winter heating allowance has been taken away from them. And I'm even more disgusted that it has been interpreted in such to many younger people that they just feel that they're just happy to go along with it because they're more entitled than those who actually deserve it because they've worked for it. And out of 10 million pensioners who've lost their winter heating allowance, I would say that it wouldn't be unreasonable that 8 or 9 million, if not more, genuinely need it. Where has this resentment of people who've worked hard and have, have something to show for it when they're older? Why has so much resentment against them been nurtured? But similarly, I feel it's very sad that many people aren't stopping to look behind them at younger people coming through and thinking, what are we going to do to give these young people a helping hand onto the property land ladder with their life, etc. And all that's happened is they've just been filled with God knows what, and with anger and with hate and resentment. And that's absolutely tragic. Just a moment, let me just look at the comments here. I'm so sorry, quite a few of you have comments. Good evening, Danuta. Thank you for joining me. I hope you are well. Louisa, can someone tell these migrants that we usually put the fish back on the ship? We will then see our emergency resources have been exploited. I know exactly where I stand, the edge of hell. Isn't it a very tragic irony that many people, those who can work remotely, etc., are leaving the UK and heading for the Mediterranean, and a vast number are actually heading for Dubai? Is that not the irony of ironies? 1984, George Orwell wasn't a rule book. No, he wasn't. In fact, I had referred to his predecessor, I think yesterday was it, I forget, Aldous Huxley, two of my favourite literary greats. But we are, or have been, and I've said this before, we will go through Aldous Huxley's Brave New World before we enter George Orwell's 1984. And why is that? Sorry to repeat myself if you have heard me say this before. Because in Aldous Huxley's words in a famous speech, he said, for a totalitarian state to succeed, there must be some measure of complicity from the people. Because when the people are pushed too far to the point that they throw caution to the wind, where they do not care anymore, the totalitarian state falls apart. However, there is a more effective way to control the masses, and that is through hedonism. Allow them to overdose on all that they should not be, and then they will destroy themselves, because when they lose their moral compass, all sense of responsibility, loyalty, obligation, then 1984, the dystopia can be brought in and they wouldn't care less. And what we are seeing now is the formation of the um, the population at one point in the Time Machine, at many years in the future. If you've seen that film, whether it's the older one or the newer one, where they have books but they don't look at them, they're not interested in anything. They have simply been turned into little more than uncaring, ruminating herbivores who are just literally there for the warlocks. And it feels that we are in that time now, not in 2000 years or whenever it may be. I can't believe that Parliament hasn't been recalled. Keir Starmer is basically having no opposition to anything he does. I know. And I'm really worried about this. I really am. And I'm very, very sad. I'm heartbroken at what is happening, to be honest. Hello, Peter, and I hope you are well. Absolutely, absolutely. What amazing men those two must have been. This is a century ago. How wonderful would it be to actually be able to have a couple of hours in a room with them and actually get an insight into their chain of thought, for them to be so on the money with what's going to happen in the future. Yes, or rather, it does not mean that you have a hatred. Phobia is fear. Both come from the Greek words. Don't ask me how I know what they mean. But misos, hate, as in misandry or misogyny, is hate. Fear, phobia, Greek word phobia, as in arachnophobia, means a fear of something. So it doesn't make sense. But anyway, yes, but they're not ignoring me. I deleted my my ex account today. I've just had enough. Never had so much toxicity from it before, and you know, this is really, really sad, because I have been connecting with people. The main thing that I want is not to direct anyone to any conclusion. So, yes, when I stood as a candidate, I said I support this. I support raising the income tax-free allowance to £20,000, VAT, that sort of thing. But my main driving force is to raise questions and to raise debate. I love democracy, as you've probably gathered, because I've repeated it God knows how many times, so I'm sorry. But that's what I wanted to do. And when it gets to the point where I can't raise questions, that's not good. Nobody's blinder than those who don't want to see. So very true. And thank you very, very much. I do wish I could really just let rip and rant, because, you know, that's how things are solved. The solution to every problem begins with dialogue, and it is being, not only has it been eroded, but it's almost being forbidden. And I never thought I'd see the day when this would happen. More than scary. Any chance you can get us an island, the Truth Speakers Island? It might not work, but at least we would feel safe. Yes, I have thought to myself, if I were to, I don't think the lottery would stretch to it. It would have to be the Euro Millions, and there's a couple of little Greek islands that I have had my eye on, but there again, that's just a pipe dream that Unfortunately, as I said, there's hardly anywhere left to go, not within Europe or the Western world. And, as I said, isn't it ironic that many people are moving to Dubai because they are more free than they are here, and safer? Hi, Anthony. Sorry, you're going through. I'd like to be. I really do hope so, Michael. I really, really do. And there's so much that I want to just put out there. And what would really, really, really like inspire me would be, if I reached a point where people would know me better and they would join me live. And I don't care if they beat the hell out of me. That's fine. That's how democracy should be. Um, the same, whether it's on this level or whether it's on a personal level. There was a time gone past where you could sit in a pub with a drink with somebody who's your best mate, but they really get on your nerves because you're this way and they're that way, whichever it may be. And generally, you effectively sit there all night beating the political hell out of each other while you're buying each other drinks, and other people may join in and take sides. And sometimes it can even get a little bit rowdy, and the landlord will raise his voice. And then you'll leave and you'll get your chips and your curry sauce and you'll go home, and it will be forgotten about the next day till the next time. And those days have gone. Hi, Peter. The most fundamental aspect of any democracy is free speech. Without it, democracy dies. Absolutely. Um, I think all of the most important points, I'm sure you're all aware of. I've been concerned. Democracy. We've not had proper democracy. If I had my way, we would have a total restructure of everything, starting from the people who represent you in your street, working its way upwards, with everyone accountable all the way. But once people are elected, they're not going to change the system that has got them into power, unfortunately. And we allegedly have representative democracy. How many of you feel that your local MP represents you, even if you did vote for them? Don't delete. That's where the truth is, surely. No, I might actually hide a few of what I've posted in the past, for the time being, until the dust settles and we know exactly where we stand. And this trigger happy show of political strength by, well, I'd hasten to say, settles down, because in this last week, we've seen people literally take notice of the threat that has been put out to everyone. Not just the "we will hunt you down, think before you post," and as I've said, the title of this one is "Legal but Harmful." That one can be almost interpreted any way they want, which means anyone who offends, anyone who contradicts the narrative, can be interpreted to be harmful. And anyone who does not take that threat seriously, sadly, is very naive or obtuse. You are a good man, Auntie. Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad you're taking a break. You have worked hard for all of us, and we thank you. Take care of yourself and lie low. We are in an age of offence. Um, I If I don't actually speak up, it's like I haven't eaten, and I have, in actual fact, I've actually been careful for me over the last few weeks. because because of everything that's been going on and surrounding me, and nothing matters to me more than making a difference or encouraging change, whatever that may be. People to actually uh, be encouraged and inspired to discuss things. I would love to see organized debates about whatever it may be. And I don't mean this insulting token gesture, question time nonsense. I'm talking a proper debate, one issue, one question, so that all different opinions can be heard about it, not just the way that it's done, where there's half a dozen questions and each one just gets a token gesture. That's not a debate. That's just a show of who can actually make the most effective sarcastic remark, provided it is approved by the master of masters in the BBC, of course. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't know the other side. There are three sides to a story: the left, the right, and God. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. And everything, I always question it, and I always think, I always want to hear a different point of view, because it is the learning that ultimately all we take with us, whatever your you know your your feelings about the great thereafter or not may be. All we take with us is what we learn, and learning is so wonderful. And in an age where we have access to so much knowledge that would have been priceless just 2 or 3 decades ago. It's absolutely incredible, but at the same time, isn't it criminal that it's all being hijacked uh, for political gain by certain people? That's so very sad. Humanity never learns. Thailand, Japan. Yes, I've never been to either, but to be honest, I do have great admiration for their for their culture and for everything about them. To be perfectly honest, that's on my places to go list, most definitely. Silence is the best weapon. Yes, you keep talking. I should shut up. Me, yes, yeah. Well, I have been told to shut up quite a few times. It's probably one of the most common uh, responses in anger directed towards me ever since I was a child. Just to put it into perspective, this is the difference of growing up to immigrant parents rather than growing up to polite English parents, who do nothing but praise their children. In my case, I was always told, we're not having another one because you were such hard work. That's the kind of thing I was told. And then 16 years and a day later, my younger brother appeared, and it was told we didn't want another one because this one was so bad. This one, well, he was an accident. uh, Only immigrant parents would speak like that to their children. So that's the irony, because even though I was born here, it could be argued that I also had to go through a period of integration, because there was the first 5 years where I could have been anywhere in the world, growing up at home, etc. The next few years, which was as more influence from my parents than from school. I would have been in school for 30 odd hours a week. The rest of the time, I'm at home. So there's all of that. And I'm not saying it's anything bad, but you would be amazed how many things I had to shake off, like a snake shaking off its coils, um, to actually find myself, because of all of this stuff being pumped at me. But here's the greatest irony of all. Um, And my parents were great, absolutely wonderful, most decent people ever. But they do have this, our motherland is like everything's better there and everything's better. And in their like late 40s, give or take, my parents moved back to Cyprus in like, oh, we're going back to the motherland. And within a few months, my dad hated it. He hated the place. He hated everything about it. And he just wanted to just come back home. How funny is that? That was after a lifetime of me hearing his nonsense. Um, it was aimed at the appertaining EDL that doesn't exist. Oh, I know. Absolutely, yes. Uh, it is depressing. It is depressing, and scary. I've spoken out many times and lost many jobs. I've lost everything I've ever worked for. All I have left is my integrity. Integrity, sorry. I had to be true to myself, the same as you. Oh, absolutely. This was my argument after I stood. I've been, you're aware of that and what my arguments were. And much as it would have been, as I perceive it, the greatest honour ever to have had the opportunity to serve as an MP and be in the Houses of Parliament, regardless of the fact that I would have been surrounded by people of questionable morality. Um, I'm not prepared to sell my soul to get there. And if that means that I do what I do my way, so be it. Um, all I intend to do for the moment is tread carefully, until we see what's going to happen, because I have a business to run. I don't have anyone to step in if anything goes wrong, and that's the last thing that I want. Um, being open minded is a gift and a curse. Yes, ignorance is a bliss, and we're back to the ruminating herbivores from the time machine, and I don't want to see that. Um, for me, I'm for the time being, I'm going to focus more on my property videos and so on, still helping people with everything that they have concerns. I've had a couple of people approach me who would like to get into property, young people. I would like, and I have asked you this before, so again, apologies if I'm repeating myself, just in case you missed it. I would like to get a team of at least 6 in and around Northampton, or no further than beyond Northamptonshire. They must have nexus with Northampton so that we can meet up at least once a month. Under 25s, maybe even younger, who I don't want anything from them, not asking anything from them, not a single penny or anything of the sort. I'd like to mentor them in all things property, starting from scratch, from the uh, property ombudsman's guidelines through and money laundering, GDPR, valuations, marketing, everything, residential and commercial, all the way through, and then hopefully be able to create opportunities for us to market property together, or deal source or whatever it may be, and maybe even make money together. Um, because what I would like as a life goal would be 12 to make 12 young people who would otherwise, I'm not saying not succeed, but who would otherwise maybe struggling work wise or career wise, to actually be the mentor behind them succeeding in property. That would be wonderful. And my only condition would be that through the course of their career, that they do the same for 12 other young people. That for me would be a wonderful legacy. And that for me would be genuine success, because ultimately, uh, people who may have a lot of money but have sold their souls to get there are not successful in any way, shape, or form. That's in my opinion. and I may be a little ideological, but that's where I stand, and I won't change my mind on that. So if you are or have friends or family anywhere around Northampton who've got youngsters between 17 and 18 and their early 20s who are interested in property, please feel free to direct them to get in touch with me. And I would be absolutely delighted to start them from scratch. We could have meetings once a month. Hopefully, I would like them all to be similar age group because I want them to become a team. I passionately object to the apprentice way of doing things. I do not agree for 1 minute with the notion of, you know, he or she who will stab their colleague in the back soonest should win. I'm more in favour of succeeding collectively, interdependency, and standing strong as a group together and helping each other out. In the long term, that makes for a much more effective and successful team. But that's how I see it. Uh, my white daughter thinks she's African. She is 5. They know they are black, but my daughter doesn't. No, she is different. Where does it start? Um, well, it starts. I'll tell you how it starts. And actually, I'm going to give you an example in a moment. But before I get there, it starts with how about us just being British with roots from here or there? What is this need to group everyone? And this is destructive. And on that note, I can actually relate to that, or I can actually give you an example of that, because for those of you who may not be aware, Cyprus is like divided down the middle. And without going into too much detail, there was a time when the people in Cyprus were just Cypriot. Some of them were Muslim Cypriots. I won't use the word Turkish, and I'll explain why in a moment. Some of them were Christian Cypriots. Put it at that. Now, despite the narrative that was placed on them, and this was done by the British government at the time, but um, also from the relevant countries, Greece and Turkey. So you had Turkey saying to the Muslim Cypriots, "You're Turkish, Turkish, Turkish." You had the Greeks and the church, who must take a large measure of the responsibility. "You're Greek, you're Greek, you're Greek." And when Cyprus finally got its independence, if you have a moment and it does interest you, go and look up the Constitution. I think it's Section 3. And it basically said in the Constitution that within 2 months of independence, you must decide what ethnicity you are, whether you're Greek Cypriot or Turkish Cypriot. And if you cannot decide, or you don't fall into one or the other, an ethnicity will be assigned to you. This was the early days of multiculturalism. And this turned Cypriot against Cypriot. And the irony is that those referred to as Turkish Cypriots were not even Turkish. They are Cypriots from the same gene pool, who happen to have converted for whatever reasons under the Ottomans centuries previously. And DNA has proved that beyond all doubt. This labelling and divided tore the island apart and set citizen against citizen. It's happened again and again, and I don't want to see it happen in this country. Why can't we just be British? Because I'm quite proud to be British. Quite proud, wrong word, very proud. And I don't understand why there is this need to pigeonhole everyone. And now it's going through my head, is what I've said ticking any boxes of the of the fanatic left or not. I'm not really sure. What do you think? But seriously, this is why um, it's it's so wrong breaking everybody down or enforcing this on them, unless, of course, the division and the breakdown was the ultimate goal. That I don't know. Um, if that were the case, that would that would mean that it was it was executed by people with malice of forethought to for people to basically turn against each other, and it would be quite terrible to concede that there are people who are that evil, that they would literally enforce a premeditated plan to just break down our society. That must be the ultimate crime against humanity. Must be. Um, so anyway, on that note, I will, whatever I'm going to say, I will be very careful. I am always here. I would love somehow to be able to resume discussion, um, uncensored discussion, and to hear all different opinions. Um, and I'm not saying that I'm not going to be posting anything. I'm just going to tread very carefully, because when I'm live and when I get in a role, um, even I don't know what I'm going to say next, to be honest, because I never have a script. Um, there are people who are that evil and they're running the show. I'm afraid so. Um, anyway, that's all for now. Thank you very much. As I said, I will I will need to plan out what I'm going to be saying in future, because, to be honest, with everything that has happened, it's really rattled me and worried me, and that's not how it should be. We have the platform for democracy, and whether I whether my opinion is this leans this way or that way, that's my opinion. It's what I believe, or it's what it's what I feel. Am I not allowed that anymore? Are we not allowed that anymore? That that's that's too much to bear. Hello, Trish. Welcome. One more. Louisa, my neighbour was Cypriot. She came here to avoid that. I guess we all come to a point we need guidance and leader. If your leader is left, then we leave. Yeah, as I said, I gave that example because it is an example of how a community that was so close turned against each other. And the rest is history, as they say. And that's not the only place that it has happened. And it's almost as though the same strategy that was executed on different countries, be it Cyprus, be it Kashmir, be it Middle East, etc., is now being implemented at home very effectively, I might add. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will be back soon. I'll work out where I go from here and how I do things. Be it for the reasons I've stated. Please keep in touch, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you again very soon. Thank you and goodbye.